Respected seniors, dear friends and colleagues, this is Dr. Anup Damangaonkar, and at the outset, let me thank profusely Bombay Orthopedic Society for giving me an opportunity to present a very debated and competitive topic in joint replacement. That's a fast-track joint replacement surgery. All of us are in a race to send our patients back home early, but this paper will help us follow steps to help us get there. So the pertinent questions in joint replacement surgeries are: what is the cost incurred in the procedure, including preoperative optimization, hospitalization, and readmission? How much pain is experienced by the patient? What is the overall patient experience and satisfaction of the procedure? And how soon does the patient get back to his activities of daily living? So over the past 15 years, Enhanced Recovery After Surgery Society, ERAS, has developed perioperative protocols which aim at lessening or reducing the length of stay, having lesser complications. Most of these protocols have been designed for general surgical procedures, including rectal, urological, so basically GI procedures, onco-reconstructive procedures. Not many recommendations have been made for orthopedic or joint replacement surgeries. So when we talk of a fast-track joint replacement surgery, especially in a busy city like Mumbai, where nobody has the time for oneself, leave alone for somebody else, we want to get the patients in and out soon. So we have thought over it. Does this mean an outpatient joint replacement surgery? We have also questioned it, and we have made our own conjectures. So the aim here is not to relate fast-track joint replacement surgery with outpatient surgeries. The aim is to reduce the hospitalization days from the conventional 4 to 10 days to 1 to 3 days, with least number of complications, have equivalent or better clinical and non-clinical outcomes with lesser cost. So with this attempt, I'd like to present this very interesting paper. It's a consensus statement presented in ACTA in 2020, in which many keywords were used in joint replacement surgery, and systematic reviews, meta-analysis, RCTs, non-randomized trials were studied from 1966 to 2018. Based on their expertise, different papers were sorted and given to different surgeons. A panel of experts, including surgeons, physicians, anesthetists, physiotherapists, and even a nursing perspective, were considered. The final recommendation were considered by the lead authors of this paper. So it's pretty much a robust paper suggesting changes. So any consensus paper defines or is based on two facets. One is what is the quality of evidence. So based on the grade system, a quality of evidence is described as a high quality evidence when it is when any further research is unlikely to change the statements that are currently made, whereas a low quality evidence suggests that any further research is very likely to change the outcome of the paper that is suggested at this time. Very low quality evidence is the statement that is made currently itself is under question. So historically, high level of evidence are systematic reviews, meta-analysis, robust RCTs, whereas low level of evidence is your respective data. The other part of consensus paper is what is the strength of the recommendation. So a strong recommendation is one in which the desirable effects of the intervention suggested clearly outweighs the undesirable ones or otherwise. Whereas a weak recommendation is one of low quality evidence or when the desirable and undesirable effects are closely balanced. Mind you, the strong recommendation can still come from low quality data if the risk of harm is negligible, whereas a weak recommendation can come from high quality data. So the scope of this paper is only the perioperative period to enable a fast track joint replacement. It is to reduce the perioperative stress, maintain and support the homeostasis, achieve discharge criteria early, and to minimize complications. The recommendations involve protocols for both total hips and total knees. We come to each individual facet. Is preoperative information and counseling recommended? Well, it does reduce anxiety, but it has no effect on postoperative outcomes or early discharges. But because it has no harm, better counseling is always recommended. Smoking cessation, yes, 4 weeks of smoking cessation is strongly recommended before a joint replacement surgery. Alcohol cessation, not much relevant in orthopedic short course of surgery, important in general surgical procedures, but yes, 4 weeks of alcohol cessation is also recommended. Preoperative anemia, yes, it has to be identified, investigated, and corrected before surgery, because it increases the transfusion rate, cost, length of stay, infection, morbidity, and readmission rates as well. So it's a strongly recommended practice to correct anemia. Is preoperative physiotherapy recommended? In isolation, preoperative physiotherapy is of no use. It does not increase patient outcomes. There's a new term called prehabilitation, which is a combination of preoperative physiotherapy, nutritional, and psychological counseling. This is still under research. More papers are required for the value of prehabilitation. At this standpoint, routine preoperative physiotherapy is not recommended. How long does the patient fast before surgery? Clear liquids are allowed till 2 hours before surgery, whereas solid food is avoided 6 hours before surgery. This enables a quicker recovery of the gut, better mobility, and it also prevents a significant decrease in gastric pH. Is preoperative carbohydrate drink recommended? There is literature evidence that it improves well-being and metabolism, especially in frail and elderly patients, but it does not accelerate the achievement of discharge criteria or reduce complications. Hence, routine use of preoperative carbohydrate drinks are not recommended. Sedative or anxiolytic drugs are not recommended routinely. Should a general anesthesia be preferred over central neuraxial anesthesia? Well, use of general or neuraxial is completely dependent from patient to patient basis based on what the patient actually requires or is needed. But what is proven right now is either of them being used with current safe modern practices have no differences in functional recovery, length of stay, or complication. Should spinal intrathecal opioids be given? There is no question they are beautiful as far as pain control goes, but they have their own side effects of increased urinary retention, pruritus, and respiratory depression. If we lower the dose of opioids, they are no more effective as local infiltrative analgesia as well. Hence, routine use of opioids intrathecally is not recommended. Should epidural catheters be kept? Routinely, they are not recommended because they have side effects of hypotension, urinary retention, pruritus, or causing motor blockade. Hence, they are not recommended. Should we use nerve blocks or local infiltrative analgesia? Local infiltrative analgesia are better than nerve blocks because they cause no toxicity, no motor blockade, they do not increase chances of infection. Local infiltrative analgesia is useful in total knee replacements, but not for total hips. If we are to use a nerve block, adductor canal blocks are much better than femoral. However, ERAS protocols do recommend and are in favor of local infiltrative analgesia and knee replacements. How do we control post-operative nausea and vomiting? Identify the risk factors. A female gender, a past history of motion sickness, post-operative nausea, vomiting, or being a non-smoker are risk factors. If we have a combination of one or more risk factors, we can use a combination therapy, that is dopamine antagonist, serotonin antagonist, use of corticosteroids as well. Tranexamic acid used locally, systemically, or in combination is strongly recommended because it does decrease the blood loss. Multimodal analgesia, very important. What does this mean? Is combining oral analgesics of different classes and with different modes of action. This does decrease the limit use of opioids. Paracetamol and NSAIDs are the mainstay in multimodal analgesia. Alternatively, we can use glucocorticoids or ketamine. The previous notion of multimodal analgesia causing prosthetic loosening is not true and is unfounded. Should we use gabapentinoids post-operatively? Yes, they do reduce the consumption of opioids, but they increase pruritus, nausea, and increase sleep. They do not reduce pain. Hence, routine use of gabapentinoids is not recommended. Should we use opioids in the immediate postoperative period? Yes, they work beautifully in the immediate postoperative period as far as pain, but they have their side effect profile of causing drowsiness, respiratory depression, nausea, vomiting, pruritus, urinary retention, and potential addiction that are known with opioids. If we are to use them in the immediate postoperative period, we'll rather use the controlled release oxycodone rather than a PCA pump. Should we use pre-warming or normothermia be maintained preoperatively? Yes. Pre-warming of patients with ambient 21 degrees of temperature is recommended. Humidification of anesthetic gases, warming IV and irrigation fluids is recommended. However, forced air warming by means of air blankets or warmers is not recommended because it increases chances of infection. Antimicrobial prophylaxis has an absolute risk reduction. risk of wound infection by 8% and relative risk by 81%. Hence, has to be given. Antibiotic loaded bone cement may reduce infection rates in total hips, but it has not been proven in total knees. DVT prophylaxis, American College of Chest Physicians recommends it for 2 weeks. NICE recommends it for 4 weeks for hips, 2 weeks for knees. However, for a stay of less than 5 days, only in hospital prophylaxis is sufficient. Having said this, their tenet is to mobilize the patient soon and adapt a local policy which is based on local demographics and tendency of thrombosis in that particular patient. Surgical approaches, whichever you use, does not accelerate the achievement of discharge criteria. So please use the approach that the surgeon is comfortable with. Use of tourniquet. So tourniquets do not reduce total blood loss. They in fact cause increased swelling, impair your early rehabilitation. It increases thrombosis and wound complications. It does not improve cementation. So routine use of tourniquet is not recommended. Should we keep drains post-op? Drains may actually increase the blood loss and cause increased transfusions. They have no positive effects on infections, hematomas, or healing. Hence, routine use of drains is not recommended. Perioperative fluid management may not be too relevant in short duration of orthopedic procedures, but they are in favor of early oral intake. However, judicious fluid management perioperatively is important in patients with pre-op renal impairment. Should we use routinely urinary catheters? Routine use of catheters is not recommended. If you use them, it's better to remove them within 24 hours. The catheterization threshold, which was initially 500 ml, has been increased to 800 ml to defer catheterization use post-operatively. Always have the patient go back to his early oral normal diet because that will enable him to recover faster. Early mobilization, I cannot stress more. This is the cornerstone of ERAS protocols. Mobilize the patient early, routinely discharged on first or the second day. This decreases insulin resistance, decreases muscle atrophy, betters pulmonary function, betters tissue oxygenation, and decreases thromboembolism. Have a criteria-based discharge, very important. Have objective criteria of when the patient goes home. For example, if he dresses independently, if he's able to get in and out of bed, sit or rise from a chair or a toilet seat, he's able to care for himself independently, he's able to mobilize with a walker or crutch for more than 70 meters, the patient goes home. Having said this, the ERAS protocols are flexible. They are subject to continuous audit and improvements as far as clinical outcomes, cost effectiveness, patient satisfaction, and experiences goes. Regular suggestions to the pathway have to be made and incorporated in the protocols. So friends, fast track surgeries need not be only fast. I cannot stress more during this pandemic that they need to be equally safe. Without safety, just being fast is of no use. It may be detrimental. So as we are in this pandemic, when we are answering questions or problems, more questions seem to be approaching us, both on a personal front, professionally. I cannot insist more during this pandemic. But for sure, perseverance is not a long race. It is many short races, one after the other. So be persistent. I am sure we have victory at the end of the road. I thank you for your patient hearing.